Have you been finding that when you're in sparring at your Muay Thai, kickboxing, MMA gym, you're getting thrown down too many times? Every time you throw up a kick, you get dumped. Every time you fall to the clinch, somebody tosses you. Today what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a selection of little clips where I throw people to the ground and I'm going to show you exactly what they did wrong, and hopefully this will help you understand things you can do to avoid getting tossed in the future. One of my big gripes about kickboxing nowadays, especially in 1FC, is you are not allowed to catch kicks and you're not allowed to dump people. You're not allowed to throw them down to the canvas. And I think this was an integral part of the kickboxing rule set, which made it so interesting. K1 Max allowed this for a relatively short period of time before Buakaw came in and rolled over everybody by just tossing them to the ground constantly. Then they adjusted the rule set. The rest of the world kind of followed suit. And now we don't get to throw as often as I think we should. But if you're doing a sparring session, you might have people who are tossing you. Or if you're in Muay Thai, especially, people in fights are going to be trying to toss you. So it's very important to understand what is happening incorrectly, which is allowing you to get tossed all the time. Now, once we go through all these video clips, I will also bring up a few other points because I just went through and randomly selected, I believe, 6 clips of me tossing people down, but there's going to be more for you to take from this episode. So make sure you stick around to the very end. And for the very first clip, we see my opponent throw a jab, throw the round kick off the southpaw stance, and then I end up trapping and sweeping him through. Now, normally the first thing that I would say to somebody if they're getting tossed a lot is, are you disguising your kick behind a punch? If you're not, it's that much easier to see it coming. If somebody just straight up throws a round kick with no disguise, yeah, people are probably going to catch that kick. But my sparring partner there did throw out the jab. His mistake, however, was not make it threatening enough for me to actually really need to react and for me to be distracted from the lower body. So he throws the jab, because he's a southpaw, off his right, but he's at a lengthy range. And this just means that I very simply just lift my hand up, but in that moment, I'm still able to see what's happening because I'm not completely distracted. If you are going to throw a kick as a distraction technique, make sure people really believe it. And sometimes you don't even want to just throw one and follow with the kick. You want to get people really thinking about it. So maybe I'll be on the outside, I'll give them a power jab first. And then maybe a moment later, I'll fake and give them a power jab. And then that third time where I just throw the fake, even if it's at a distance, you will get that reaction. But my opponent did not do that in this sparring session. He just threw out sort of a lazy jab. I knew distance-wise I was safe, so my reaction to that was pretty negligible, and I didn't need to do anything, which meant my eyes were laser focused on everything else, which made catching the kick very simple. Okay, next up, we are looking at me throwing a couple body hooks. From the body hooks, he then locks on with the double hand clinch because my hands are down low. But from there, he gets elevated. As I elevate, he elevates. His body's very straight, and then it's so easy for me to step on the outside of one of his legs and dump him down. If you have a stance that is shoulder width, you do not want to get stretched up in height because now it's so easy to off balance that person. What he should have done is, there was a good idea at first, he takes body shot, he wraps up because I'm in the middle of hitting down low and my head is exposed. He wraps up, but instead of doing the knees or worrying about a throw, he should have shuttered down my head a little bit, pulled it down to break my balance because it was far too easy for me to go shot, head grab, and then I just lift and I go, oh, he's off balance. Now I can just step around and throw him. You need to make sure that if you double hand control somebody around the neck, you don't give them that opportunity to lift straight up because now, especially if they're taller, they're gonna drag you up with them. So just make sure when you take control, give them a little jolt first to break their balance, pull them forward, and then it's so much easier to keep them here and much more difficult if I just got grabbed, much more difficult for me from here to lift and straighten out. For the next clip, we see my sparring partner throw an inside low and then come up to a body level round kick off the same leg. I actually really like this idea, but there's a couple things wrong with what he did. Number one, I checked the round kick. When I check the round kick, it's going to be very difficult for me to be off balance. I check, this leg is solid, I'm stationary. Once I drop, I'm ready for the next technique. When you go from inside low, in this instance, up to body level, which I absolutely love, you have to make sure that you actually full on catch the guy on the thigh and you knock them off balance, because now once I'm getting knocked off balance, I'm focused on regaining my footing. I go one, and it's so much harder for me to grab. But in this instance, just like before with that jab, me checking is not enough of a distraction to take my mind off that round kick after and get my hand on it. So if you are somebody who likes going to the leg and then up to the head, make sure you land your technique, not against their check, but against their thigh, and look in that moment, are they slightly off balance? Did I do anything to make sure that they're regaining their composure? And then while they're thinking, that's when you shoot up high. So much harder to catch a kick when you're unstable. Next up, we're looking at a frame, an attempted frame. So what happens very often when people end up in the clinch, they take one of their legs, they flip it over, and they frame it against their opponent's thigh. The idea behind this being, you can't walk through a frame. And if you pull me in, I'm just gonna put my supporting weight on that elevated leg and it'll drop right into you. And there's nowhere for me to fall. But what my sparring partner did wrong here was he framed on one half of my body. The other half, which is the leg he's standing on, is exposed. So I'm able to drag him this direction and his leg spins off. If he would have taken a shin and put it flat across my hips, now when I pull, he would have just got jammed against me. So if you are going to frame, make sure you cover the entire distance of the body as opposed to just one half. It's just a very simple thing to do to really stuff somebody if they try to drag you while you're framing off one foot. All right, next up we're looking at a caught round kick. I sweep the front of the leg. This is a very interesting technique, something that a lot of people get caught with. The round kick comes, you grab. The very first thing that we see my sparring partner do, which he should not do, is as soon as the kick is caught, I'm just gonna take a look at the sparring footage here. So he throws the kick, it gets caught, he should be turning and framing this knee down low across my body, as we already mentioned. We just did that in the last one. I was talking about proper framing. If you throw this leg up and you leave it elevated, there's a clear path for me to now move in for the sweep. And at the same time, that leg which I've grabbed, because the toes are pointing up, it's very easy for me to just elevate, and that's gonna toss him off balance. But when your body is turned sideways and somebody lifts, it's just gonna pull a little bit more through the groin. And in my experience, it's much easier for somebody to try and elevate me this way as opposed to this way. As soon as they do it like that, I am forced backwards automatically. So if your round kick gets caught, and the reason it got caught is he didn't do a setup again. He just came straight into the round kick. I'm able to see that very easy. Had he thrown on maybe a power jab first, I would have been distracted. This arm would have stayed stationary as I blocked the jab, then he could have kicked me here. But because it was just a round kick, easy catch, he doesn't turn the leg over, easy for me to step in and throw my sweep to his shin. And the final clip, which we are looking at today, is my opponent throwing a left round kick. I catch it, and I very simply drag him backwards until he's unable to keep up with me. What you want to recognize is making somebody chase their leg, that makes it difficult for them to maintain balance. But very often, if somebody's good, if I pull them, they're gonna hop. But my sparring partner was unable to do that because I dragged down a little bit lower, and instead of chasing his leg, he stayed there a little bit too long. Once I felt like he was overstretched, it was just a simple tug to the side, and now they're completely off balance. When somebody catches your leg and they start trying to maneuver you, it's very important for you to elevate your weight out of the heel into the ball of the foot and start bouncing while creating a frame, either with your arm or your leg, to make sure that they cannot close the distance. Because if you are elevated, coming in and sweeping you is that much easier because your weight is not heavy on the back leg. So sometimes when your kick gets caught, you drop your weight. But then as soon as you start getting dragged, you need to elevate and start bouncing. If they try to close the distance, you frame up in some way and you get your weight back down through your heel. Finding that ability to lift and drop your weight is very essential to avoid getting thrown if your kick is already caught. Now I want to give you 2 additional thoughts on ways to avoid getting tossed to the ground. The first one, and we don't have sparring footage for this, just simply because I do have a lot of sparring footage, but I didn't want to go through and find every clip that I needed for this talk. But the very first thing is be diverse with your kicks. If somebody throws a left round kick at me and I take one and I just get hit here, that's it. I do a terrible job in blocking it. Then the next time, most likely, I'll be going, okay, I gotta be smarter, and I'll do that. If somebody does a 3rd or 4th kick in a row, not even in a row, sometimes just in a round, where they do it, you know, jab, cross, they throw the left round kick. Cross, hook, they throw the left round kick. I start catching on very quick to that left round kick is a massive part of their arsenal, and then from there, I'll start trying to trap it and really make them pay for continually throwing it without mixing it up. If you want to throw something, let's say this is my favorite punch, the right hook. I don't throw it over and over and over and over. I gotta mix it up, throw a couple double jabs in. Maybe I'll throw a cross, come to the uppercut, and then throw the right hook. Maybe I'll lean to the side and counter off the right hook. I'm throwing it a lot, but it's always diverse in the way I actually execute. Same thing, if you throw the same type of kick, your favorite kick, over and over and over without changing up the attack pattern, it becomes far too predictable. The second thing that I want you to keep in mind to avoid getting tossed to the ground is when we fall to the clinch. Very often when I throw people from the clinch, it's because if I'm facing this way, one leg is in front of the other. When one leg takes the lead in clinch work, it makes this lead leg very exposed to either sweeping or stepping to the outside of that leg and tossing them. As soon as you fall to the clinch, you take your legs, you square them up, you get your hips close to your opponent, and then you bend your knees very slightly. And now from here, it is so much harder to get somebody down to the floor. I've done hundreds, if not thousands of rounds of sparring, and the people who do that make my life so much more difficult if I want to dump them down to the ground. So that was my fast, quick episode on how to avoid getting tossed to the ground, some of those examples with video footage. I hope you enjoyed the content today. I hope you took something from it and are able to stabilize a little bit more. As we get further on in me developing this channel, I will have full body episodes for you where you can see everything. Just at the moment now, my filming studio does not allow for that, unfortunately, but I'm actively pushing forward, trying to get my space ready so that I will have that ability to shoot full episodes for you and just have this channel become the hub, the go-to place for striking on YouTube. It's coming. We'll get there. Guys, if you enjoyed today's episode, please give it a like. If you haven't already, join the channel and get subscribed. I just realized if you like this shirt I'm wearing, this rash guard from XMartial, you can pick it up. Their website is linked below. It's not a sponsored episode. I just know a lot of times people ask me what I'm wearing, and this is just something they sent, and I just felt like wearing it for today. Guys, I will see you back here soon for another video.